Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. It's quite a wonderful, beautiful and warm spring day here at Hinokicho Park. And a little bit busy as it's lunchtime and there are a lot of people out here to enjoy the wonderful weather. I have a duck just a short distance away from me who is picking around in the bushes trying to get a hold of something. Maybe he'll come a little bit closer, you may hear him in the background. Just in front of me is a large pond, and on top of one of the rocks in the pond, the two turtles which live in this pond are enjoying the sunshine and getting out and warming up. I think this is the first time this year which I've seen them. Very busy time of year for Japan. The school year and the fiscal year start on April 1st. So school kids and university kids began their first day of school just a few days ago. And also, young people who have just graduated from university started their first day of work. It's kind of an odd thing for I guess, Westerners to understand the system here in Japan, the way it works. But when you graduate from Japan or college in Japan, most kids go to work, or graduates go to work for one company or other. And usually in March you see these young people all dressed in dark suits and carrying new bags and new dress shoes. And the girls are all wearing, I guess, tan coats, going into the various office buildings around the city for interviews and things like that. And then on April 1st, in the busier parts of the city, you'll actually see long lines of these young people showing up to their first day of work. So quite a big time of year for them. And also it is the beginning and end of the fiscal year. So April 1st is the date when you are supposed to have your accounts and everything paid for the year, taxes and all that. It's quite busy. And it's also quite a busy time for suicides. A lot of you have probably heard about the suicide rate in Japan being quite high. And around this time of year it is really high, because those who find April 1st coming around without either having gotten into the school they like, or being able to settle their debts for the year or pay their taxes, sometimes, let's just say that the trains and subways have a lot of delays this time of year, to put it nicely, if anything like that can be put nicely. Anyway, we'll go ahead and move on to the subject of today's video, and it's going to be about another Canonet camera. And this one is simply called a Canonet. And this is a very early version of the Canonet, the first version which came out, and it's around late 50s, 1960s, something like that. The release date varies depending on where you happen to be. They're released first here in Japan, and eventually they get released in other parts of the world. The Canonet was a consumer-oriented camera designed for the main market, a high-quality, well-made, solid camera with what were considered state-of-the-art features of the time. For those of you who are new to my channel, I sell vintage Japanese cameras in my online store, japanvintagecamera.com, as well as my Etsy store, which is also called Japan Vintage Camera. So if you're interested in buying this camera or another vintage Japanese camera, please visit one of my stores. I'll post links to my stores in the description below the video. So, the Canonet, normally when I say the word Canonet, I almost always automatically use the words QL or QL17 or QL something after it, because most people are familiar with those later versions of the Canonet, which were produced in the 60s up until the early 1970s. But the first Canonet is one of the most common ones that you will find, at least here in Japan. They were made in very large numbers, mainly due to, I guess, the quality, the price, and the fact that they were quite easy to use and would give really good results to an amateur photographer. We'll go ahead and take a look at the features, controls, and functions and how to use the Canonet. And starting on the top here, we have pretty much nothing. It's quite empty on the top here, nice and flat and smooth, nothing to distract you, nothing to get snagged or tangle or mess with. We have a shoe here for mounting a flash gun, and on this side here we have a shutter release button, which happens to have a T setting, and it accepts a standard cable release, and right next to that we have the film counter dial. On the back of the camera we have the Viewfinder Eyepiece, which is quite a bit larger than many of the eyepieces which you find on other cameras of this era. And this was to make it a little bit easier for people who wear glasses to use the camera. For those of you who don't know, a lot of people in Japan wear glasses. On the front of the camera, of course, we have the viewfinder window, we have the rangefinder mirror window, and here we have this kind of opaque glass, which is what allows, I guess, diffused light to project the frame lines into your viewfinder. On the bottom, we have quite a large assortment of things here. First, we have the trigger winding system located right on the bottom. The trigger winder was a really piece of high-tech, I guess, high technology of the time. It allowed you to wind the film and charge the shutter much more quickly than a top-mounted winder. At least that's what it was advertised as being able to do. Motor drives had not quite been perfected yet. Nikon was still working on theirs, and it worked well enough if you didn't mind the complication and weight. And some of the earlier ones required that you carry a battery pack attached to your belt or something like that. So this was quite of one of the high-tech features of the time. This feature was also found on cameras like the Ricoh 35, and also on some of Canon's professional quality cameras like the Canon Flex. This was thought to be, I guess, a wonderful feature, and I guess it was fairly popular because a lot of these cameras were sold. Over here we have the film rewind knob with a pop-out lever, and it looks very much like the ones you find on the later Canonets, except that it's on the bottom of the camera and not the top. And over on this side here we have the latch which you use to open the film door. There's kind of a safety button there which you push to get it to work. And over here you have the release button for allowing you to rewind the film. And on the bottom here we have a focusing tab, which allows you, of course, to focus the lens. And we have a range scale set up on the top here in both meters and feet. Before that we have some of the more important things. These are the controls which allow you to adjust the aperture. This is the aperture control ring, the small one, just in front of the distance scale. And in front of that, of course, is the shutter speed ring. We have a built-in self-timer and a selector between the regular mode and flash sync mode. And on the bottom here we have this dial which you use to set for whatever film you have loaded in the camera. It has a range of ASA 10 up to 400, which was about the same as you would find on the Canon 7 rangefinder camera and some of the other cameras which had built-in light meters. On the front here, in the very front, we have this kind of odd-looking plastic ring, which is the light diffuser for a selenium light meter. And the selenium light meter allows this camera to shoot in shutter priority automatic mode. So to operate the camera in automatic mode, you simply turn it to the auto setting with the aperture ring. And then as you select the shutter speed and you look through the viewfinder, on the bottom you'll see a meter indicator, which indicates the aperture. And as you adjust the shutter speed, the meter will show you which aperture the camera is selecting. So it's quite a simple system, and a very good system for those who have trouble holding a camera still for long exposures. You can kind of set the camera at the minimum shutter speed that you feel comfortable with, and the camera will set the appropriate aperture for that shutter speed. And of course, right here in the middle we have the lens, and this particular camera came with a 45mm f1.9 lens, which was quite a marvelous performer, a wonderful lens for these cameras, and quite well made. The earlier Canonets seemed to use a higher quality glass than the later versions, despite the fact that the later versions of these cameras are more popular. These lenses featured glass which was more resistant to fungus and haze and such like that, which is a common problem when you are shopping for a later Canonet. It's quite hard to find a newer style Canonets, QL17 or something like that, which does not have at least some amount of marks or haze in the glass. But if you can put up with the much larger size and the trigger winding system, the earlier Canonet will give you, I guess, a much more reliable lens. See if I can get this film door open on the back here, and I can show you how to load the film in the camera. It pops open like so, and it's a bit opposite compared to other cameras. You'll first have to pull down on the film rewind knob, drop your film canister inside here and then push this back in to hold it in place. And I always put my thumb on the film canister to keep it from moving out of the way as I pull the film leader, because despite the fact that this is supposed to hold the canister in place, more than once I've gone to pull on the film leader and the film has popped out and been very annoying to me. So yeah, hold it down with your thumb. Pull the film leader across and feed it into the take-up spool here, and you can simply just keep winding until the holes in the film are lined up with the teeth on the take-up sprocket here, and then close the door, and then simply wind the shutter or wind the film and fire the shutter until the number 1 shows up in the film counter window. These are quite interesting cameras, and I come across quite a lot of these. I haven't really sold a lot of these in the past, but I've decided that since I come across so many of these and that they are really good quality cameras, that I should perhaps put some of these up for sale for anyone who might be interested in one. So as I said more toward the beginning of the video, if you were interested in purchasing this camera, please check out my stores. I'll have it up for sale shortly. Anyway, that's it for my video on the early Canonet rangefinder camera. I'll be posting more videos about Canon and other cameras shortly. If you'd like to see these, please subscribe. If you like the video, please hit the like button. That always helps. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.